Hey, this is Dr. Glenn Livingston, and I've got a special treat for you today. I am here with Susan Shank, who is the author of a popular book. I believe it was one of the bestsellers on Amazon for quite some time. It's called The Live Food Factor, so it's not about marketing per se, but it is about one of my personal passions, and I thought it would be interesting to do a different type of an interview because Susan has a good deal of experience in what it's like to actually get a book written and get published. I've worked with editors and publishing houses and self-publish versus agent publish and all that kind of thing, and actually doing the promotion of the book. And I know that there are a lot of you out there who are considering writing a book, and actually I have written a book before. Most people don't know that. It wasn't very popular. I didn't really promote it, and I'm considering doing it again. So it's an interesting interview for me as well. That's a very long-winded introduction for Susan Shank of The Live Food Factor. How are you, Susan?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm good. You're down in sunny Ecuador today, aren't you?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's a story in and of itself, how you got there. What if we start at the beginning and talk a little bit about when did you decide to write books and germ of an idea of The Live Food Factor come into your consciousness and kind of take it from there?
Yeah, I've always loved to write, and it was always my dream to be an author. And I'd written, a couple of dry run books before that I never really did anything with. But when I discovered the raw food diet, I had been a health seeker all my life. And this was it. This was like finding the fountain of youth, the holy grail. So I thought, boy, I have to write a book about this. Even if only my friends and loved ones read it, it's going to be worth it for me to write this book. But I kept researching and just endless amounts of material to get this secret out there. And I noticed that most of the books, and there were almost all the books, actually, in the raw food diet at that time, and we're talking a mere 8 years ago, they were all self-published. The diet simply wasn't worth any publisher's money. It was too much of a niche market, So I thought, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and self-publish this. Through all the reading, I noticed that there was no book out there that really pulled together the science behind why this works. There would be like 1 or 2 experiments in each book, and there was no book that really pulled together all the scientific proof. And since I had a medical background as an acupuncturist and my father was an MD, I knew that was really important to get solid type proof out there that eating raw is the way that our bodies feel the peak health. We can reverse disease, we can have peak energy on a raw diet if at least 80% of the calories are raw. And then I also began to notice that there was no comprehensive guide out there. So as I wrote, the whole book sort of unfolded into a comprehensive guide. And I didn't even want to put my recipes in there because I don't consider myself a chef. But all my friends said, you've got to put your recipes in there. Man, they're so great. You could open a restaurant. And that's because raw, it just tastes so much better. You know that, Glenn. It tastes better than food because when you cook it, you cook out the flavor, don't you?
Cook out the flavor, and you cook in a lot of toxins also.
You create a lot of toxins when you cook it, yeah. I was really driven by an inspiration. And I'll tell you, the writing field is so competitive nowadays that you have to think, you're going to do this for fun, not for money. But what happened, I put so much energy into this. It took me years to write it, about 6 years altogether. And I did have help, too, from people in the field, my 2 editors and contributors. I thought, well, if only 100 people read this, this has been worth my while. Even if I just, help one person. But over the years, about 15,000 people have bought my book. So it's been a great experience. It's just been a wonderful ride.
Wonderful. You said a number of things I just kind of want to underscore because I speak to a number of authors, and I'm always sensitive to the psychological motivation of what it takes to accomplish these mammoth undertakings. Because I think writing a book, especially the kind of comprehensive scientific guide that you wrote, I think it's a mammoth undertaking. And the first thing you said was, even if this only helps myself and my personal friends, it would be worthwhile. And
yes,
I actually think that that's the primary reason to write a book.
Absolutely. Who was helped most by writing this book? Me.
It forced you to organize your thinking. And who else knows more about this important topic?
Oh, I had to read the book at least 15 times, and each time I read it, it made more of my diet raw. So I really wrote it mainly for myself.
Right. So I'm wanting my listeners to be asking themselves, what would you all get out of writing a book if no one ever read it? If you were the only one that put it all together and you got to organize the information and develop a level of expertise that only comes from writing the book on the topic, what would you get out of that? And then, Susan, it sounded like that motivation is part of what carried you forward because, like you said, it's a niche market. And since it is a niche market and it is kind of a counterculture book, the advertising industry doesn't really want you to publish this book, and it's not a very profitable, large market. Could you talk a little bit more about the obstacles you encountered like that and how you overcame that?
The main obstacle that I had was I didn't have a big publishing to fund me, but I talked to a lot of authors. I have a lot of published authors, some self-published by publishing companies. They don't really give you a whole lot of money anyway. You have to spend your own money, and you have to spend your own time marketing it. But you only end up making like $1 a book or something, some ridiculously low amount of money. So I thought, if I'm going to put all this money and all this time into it, then I may as well be the one that makes some money. So I'm making probably 10 times as much money as I would if I had sold this to a company. It's really been worth it for me to be self-published. But what I did was I really researched it. And I found that the advantages of getting published by a publishing company is that it's easier to get it reviewed in magazines and newspapers, especially if it's a big name company. And of course, who wouldn't want the prestige to be published by Simon & Schuster or something like that? But basically, you get stuck marketing it yourself. You end up having to spend most of the money to market, and you don't make as much money.
That's when a large house publishes it. You still get stuck marketing it yourself.
Yeah, but if a large company publishes it and they really like your book, then they'll throw more money at you.
But isn't that kind of like 1 out of 100 books on their list that they'll do that?
Yeah, exactly. And this is a niche book, and the main reason I did it was really more to help my loved ones and, just to be able to get into that creative flow. That in itself, the creative flow, is worth it. You were saying, is it worth it even if you don't publish it? Right now I'm writing my spiritual memoirs, and even if I don't publish it, it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey, inner journey. So the creative flow in itself is a reward.
That makes sense. During the course of writing the book, did the book write itself, or did you hit some obstacles or some sticking points?
Well, when you get into the creative flow, you always have to walk around with a pad of paper. Like if you're walking on the beach or taking a hike, if you're anywhere without your computer, you've got to have a pen and a pad of paper because ideas will hit you anytime. They'll just come out of nowhere, and you've got to jot them down. The more you're in that flow, the more the ideas come, the creative phrases, the key sentences, the unique ideas. They just pour into you when you're in that zone.
And their half-life is not often that long if you don't write them down.
Right, you won't remember them. Mm-hmm.
With that philosophy, the book it just came out of you?
Yeah. When you get in the flow, it becomes so easy. It's like the book does, in a sense, write itself. It's almost like you're channeling it, But you have to put the work in there. If you're doing a nonfiction book, you've got to do the research. You've got to see what everybody else has written. You've got to read the studies. You've got to find out what's out there. And then you add to that nonfiction information your own experiences from people that you know or have worked with, and your personal opinion on the issue.
How long did it take you to write the book?
This is the second edition that came out. So 4 years to write the first one, 2 years to polish it up to come out with the second edition.
Wow. Your book was particularly comprehensive. Do you think that's common?
Yeah, I think so. I think the bigger the book, the longer it takes. But I was working at the same time. If you don't have to work, then you could do it a lot faster. The book I'm writing now, Beyond Broccoli, Creating a Balanced Diet When a Vegetarian Diet Doesn't Work. This book is taking me less to write, partly because it's half as long, but also because it's my full-time job right now.
A lot of things are a lot easier when you don't have to work.
When it's your full focus.
Yeah, sure. Was it difficult to figure out the mechanics of actually publishing the book as a self-publisher? Was it expensive? Did it take you a long time to work that out, or was that the easy part? I mean, you don't really have to contract with anybody while you're writing the book, but then at some point you need a printing house and you need designers and...
Oh, okay. There's a Write Guide. I can't remember the name of it, but it tells you if you want to try to find a publisher, go to Barnes & Nobles and ask them what the Writer's Market book is. It costs about $35, and it will tell you all the agents that you can contact. It's very, very competitive, especially with all free information on the Internet. The whole market is in a big revolution where there's a bigger playing field now for people who self-publish. It's really great. Anybody who's really serious about it can fulfill their dream and become an author. Marketing it is another thing.
Could you talk a little bit more about the logistics of getting the book published yourself?
Yes. What I recommend, and this is what I did myself, don't go and fork out $20,000 to print out, 6,000 copies or 10,000 copies. The best thing to do is do a print on demand. And I found that it was good to work with BookSurge. It's now called CreateSpace because that's a print on demand with Amazon. And that way you don't have to pay for the shipping to go to Amazon because it's right there. And then what you do is you test your book. What I did was with my first edition, I sold so many copies that I thought, well, I'm losing a lot of money. I better print this myself. So I spent $20,000 of my own money and printed it out so that I could make more money per book. So what I recommend is that you start out with a print on demand and see how well your book is doing before you do a major printout. There's a lot of fine companies out there with really great work. CreateSpace on Amazon, the advantage of that is that the books are right there. That'll be shipped to Amazon. You don't need to pay for that. When you do get into printing huge numbers of books, you're going to find that there's all these expenses out there that you never dreamed of, such as storing the book. And then whenever they mail one book out, they charge you $4 for that book. $4 handling. Yeah, so it used to be a very expensive endeavor, and when you sell it to bookstores, and major catalogs, but if you print out some yourself, you're going to have to do some groundwork and get it into the catalogs. If you get it done by the print-on-demand company like Lightning Source or CreateSpace, they'll get it in the catalogs for you. Once you get it in the catalogs, they're going to want to buy the book from you at a 60% discount. You're going to make a very little profit on those books.
Has the book in and of itself proved to be a good profit model for you, or do you have to sell ancillary services and, boot camps and that kind of thing? It sounds like from what you're describing that it's really difficult to squeeze the profits out of the book. In the circles I run in, people say that the purpose of the book is to make you the expert and...
Right. I am able to live off of my book profits in Ecuador because the cost of living here is cheap. But you're right. The book is your credentials. It makes you the expert. It gives people a reason to attend your workshop. So the real money is being made not from the book, but from the workshop or products that you sell online that are related to the book, your professional one-on-one consultations, or they call it coaching nowadays. So the book, basically, it gives you the credentials as an expert.
You mentioned that when you use Amazon.com's, I think it's called CreateSpace, when you get their print-on-demand service, that they get in the catalogs for you. Is that the case for all books?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So it saves you shipping costs and it saves you the process of getting the book into the catalogs. If I'm not interested in making their profit on the book, I just want to get it distributed and into customers' hands, then it sounds like using CreateSpace and Amazon.com is a really good way to go because they print it without a lot of risk, and they get into the catalogs for you, and then I guess you also get the facings on Amazon.com, right?
Exactly. Form your own publishing company and buy your own ISBN numbers. That's a way to go, too. And another thing that I wanted to mention too is that I've always been a professional. I've taught everything from preschool to university. I've been an acupuncturist, but at no point in my life did I have people respect me as much as they do now simply because I've written a book. I mean, when I hand people my card that I'm an author, oh, you're an author. So it's a great way to get professional respect.
They say, do you have a card? You say, no, but I can give you my book.
That would be expensive, though.
I suppose it would. So it depends on what your back end really is. So let's talk a little bit more about promoting the book. So other than getting them into the catalog, what did you actually do to promote the book?
Oh, that was a full-time job for about a year. What I found that really works online, because most of us really don't have enough money to go travel and give book signings and talks everywhere. So the best way to market is to do affiliate marketing. You have a website and you have to have a newsletter that you give out to people. And you have to have affiliate software, like I use oneshoppingcart.com. And then you get people who have similar websites as yours, similar topic, same genres, and you ask them to donate a bonus gift.
If I can articulate back what you're doing, you're networking with similar sites in the same keyword space, essentially, and then you're recruiting joint venture partners in that space and asking them to donate a bonus gift. So then you've got a whole bunch of bonus gifts that come with your book, and you ask these people to mail for you, and that's been the most effective for you?
That has been a huge thing. That, and then another thing that's really worked for me has been getting hold of like ProfNets and Help a Reporter, Haro, Help a Reporter online or something, where you get leads from different people who are writing. And let's say that an author is writing a book about weight loss. So I write back to this author and I tell him about my book, and I write a paragraph about whatever he's interested, and then this author might quote me. And by using this method, I've been quoted in major magazines like Woman's Day and Women First, different magazines with wide circulation, and I've been quoted on blogs and different websites. So that's the second really good way. A third good way is to write articles and submit these articles to websites that might want to publish them. Some people put them on eZine, but I found that that's not really that effective.
So you talked about Help a Reporter Out in my marketing club. I reviewed publicity methods, and one of them was using the competitive service. Bill Harrison is a good friend of mine from RTAR.com, and he runs a service called ReporterConnection.com.
Yes, I use that one too.
Yeah, cool. Well, maybe offline I'll be curious to hear your comparison of the two. So there's that, and the third method was what?
Writing articles sometimes helps, but you have to be really aggressive and find some websites that might want to publish them, because just putting them on eZine is not really that effective. And then another thing, I bought this book called Sell Your Book on Amazon, something like that. And Amazon is the world's biggest bookseller, as everybody knows. So one of the methods that really resonated with me is to keep abreast of all the books that are coming out in your field, in your area, and then be the first person to write a review for that book on Amazon. And then if you write a really wonderful, wonderful review, a 5-star review, that review will always be up there. And anybody who's looking at that review is going to click on your name, like I'll put Susan Shank, author of The Live Food Factor, and they'll go to your webpage and find out about your book.
That is, wow, that's cool.
Eventually, I didn't even have to buy that many books because people were sending me free copies of different books. And I didn't just stick to the raw food. I did diet and even did other things that had to do with the body, mind, spirit category. And I was reviewing like 2 or 3 books a week. I mean, and the ones that I didn't like, I would just sell them again on Amazon, getting almost all my money back.
Very, very, very interesting. What about Kindle versus paperback issue? Was it important to you to get your book into Kindle format?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You've got to get it in Kindle. I haven't had time because I've been so busy writing Beyond Broccoli, but I wanted to get it at iBookstore too, because this is the wave of the future. It really is. It's very important because the younger generation, they are not going to buy the paperback because they want everything to be electronic. They don't believe in using so much paper. They just want the convenience of having it right there on a gadget. There's a lot of conveniences for that. You can do a search for a word a lot faster. I had to leave behind in California a library of 1,300 books, and they're all in storage now. It's going to cost me a fortune to bring them here. If I had all that, I could probably fit all those books on one Kindle. Wouldn't have to move it all here.
There's an application that obviates the needs for an actual Kindle hardware. You can do it right on your iPhone or your BlackBerry. I got 50 books in there as we speak, so that makes perfect sense. But from a marketing perspective, you found that are a lot of people buying the Kindle version of your book?
Yes, not nearly as many as people that buy the hard copy. But it is a growing field, and of course, if you buy a Kindle book, you can't resell it like you can on Amazon. We're from the baby boom generation. We're so used to the kinesthetic part of the book, the paper. We're so accustomed to it. But there's a whole generation of people that are used to everything being electronic. That's going to grow and grow and grow. It's the wave of the future, and you don't want to miss out on that. You definitely want to get your book on Kindle. And it only costs like $300 for the sign up or something, and it'll be repaid pretty quickly.
Just to highlight the article submission technique you were talking about before, I'm assuming what you're doing is identifying like high-ranking blogs in your keyword space or websites that seem to be publishing articles and going after them directly with articles that you've written and telling them why you think it's a good fit for their site in particular?
Yes, that is another really useful marketing technique. And people are always looking for new articles to put on their website. So that's good. And then there's another method, too, is to go to other blogs and start blogging at other sites. And always have at the end your name and author of your book. And go to related blogs and just start making the comments and everything. So it links back to your website.
It sounds like, if I'm reading you correctly, that of all these methods, what was most effective for you was the joint ventures.
Yeah, the most effective was probably the joint ventures in terms of really getting my book out there and selling it. In fact, when I did an Amazon bestseller thing, and again, this book, Sell Your Book on Amazon, that explains how to do a lot of this stuff. My book got up to number 23 in all genres for a couple of days. But then my website crashed.
Oh, no.
I sold 1,000 books in that 2-day period. That gave it a real jump start, because once you sell a few thousand books, then if your book is good, you can start relying on word of mouth. So I would say to any publisher, you really got to make sure your book is good. Have it read. If you're going to self-publish a book, have it read by as many people as are willing to do that. Have them write short testimonials that you can put experts in your field. When in doubt, leave it out. If you have something in there that's not true, just leave it out, because you don't want your reputation to be ruined. I mean, there are people out there that will say, you're wrong about this, and then they'll just put the whole book down and not even read it. They won't even finish it because there's one thing in there that they found not to be true. Now, let me tell you, I've read probably at least 300 or 400 nutrition books. I've read so many that I can pick up any nutrition book and I'll find it lead to mistakes. These are books written by doctors, MDs, nutritionists. I'll find mistakes or issues that are very, very controversial and found not to be true.
What you're saying is that human nature is to throw out the baby with the bathwater, so
you don't want to have any bathwater in there. If it's something that you're not sure of, just to omit it. Or another way to get around it is some people think that but qualify it so that it's not you, or quote somebody else is saying it. That way it's a fact that this person said it.
Now, this is really an interesting segue, because one of the fascinating things about your journey in particular is you published this really Bible of living food lifestyle, which is at livefoodfactor.com, correct?
Yes.
So you published this, and people on my list know me as a very scientific marketer and someone who's kind of left-brained, and it takes a great deal to convince me and form an opinion. And I really have to compliment you. I was just floored by how thorough that book was, and I did not really want to become a raw food vegan, and that's kind of the direction I took with that book at the time. But then I felt inspired to call you, mostly because I wanted some help with my own personal diet and was trying to work out how to eat the way you were describing. And in 15 minutes, you totally turned, 180 degrees. Well, not really 180 degrees, but you convinced me to start eating fish and some meat again. And
yeah, this is the thing. I still believe in raw food, but I'm not a vegan anymore. In truth, in my book, The Live Food Factor, I'm not really that fanatical about the vegan diet is. Victoria Bidwell goes into the whole vegan thing. If you kind of read between the lines, I'm still doubtful about it, especially when you read Appendix C. I had this kind of wait and see attitude about it, and my 6-year experiment showed me that for my body, veganism doesn't work. Now, there's a lot of people that are very upset about this. I came out of the non-vegan closet on a radio show, and some of the people on the blog said, this woman needs to read more and write less. Somebody that changes their mind. But I don't like to get stuck in dogma. And now I really don't think that the vegan diet works for most people. It's not the way that we evolved.
I mean, that's the mark of a true scientist, is that you're seeking the truth and you're willing to overturn your previous hypotheses and theories. But the problem in publishing is these publications have their own momentum, don't they? So they're out there and there's word of mouth, and when you said yourself 15,000 people have purchased the book. And so now when you make such a radical shift, I'm wondering, does that old book then become kind of like a literary albatross, and how do you deal with that?
No, because I do believe that for some people the vegan does work, and if you read Appendix D, you can see that for some people it obviously doesn't. So the 3 Qs are quality, quantity, and quit cooking it to death.
You don't want to burn your meat. You want to make sure that it's clean, meaning from non-adulterated sources. So we're talking about wild fish and organic egg whites and, okay, maybe some buffalo meat, that kind of thing. The reason I was asking you about that question is that I published a seminar a number of years back, and it was, a $1,000 seminar, and it was my absolute best thinking at the time. But after I had feedback from thousands of people, I had to revise an awful lot about it. There was a consultation coupon that came with it, and I still get people who are following the old methods. I kind of want to pull my hair out because I can't find everybody that ever got a copy of this. And when you go public with things, it's just, I guess, par for the course that happens. But if people really want to follow your line of thinking, the best thing they could do is to read the Live Food Factor and then consider adding a little bit of clean fish and clean meat with those 3 Qs.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's fair enough. Is there anything else that I should have asked you about what it was like to write a book, or things that prospective authors should watch out for?
You've got to make sure you don't have anything in there that's not true, and if you're sure of it, when in doubt, leave it out, or make sure that you quote somebody else saying it, and have several friends review the book for you. Don't think just because you have a full-time job that you can never fulfill your dream of being author. During part of the time that I was writing the book, I was working 60-hour weeks and just the weekends or vacations. So persist at it. It's a dream that everybody should follow, because Kindle books, iBookstore, and with print on demand, anybody can be an author if they discipline themselves to write the book. It's so fulfilling to have a message and get that message out there. It's so fulfilling to have people email you and say, wow, you changed my life, or you really helped me. I can't tell you how fulfilling it is. So everybody really should do it if that's their dream. Now, there's never been a better time with computers and print on demand.
From what you're describing, it really helps you crystallize your mission and makes you feel like you're having an impact on the world, which is what I love about publishing. I come from a family of psychologists, and it always bothered me that I was going to spend 9 years getting a PhD at DeKalb College, and all those years of supervision and psychotherapy, and then in the end I could, maybe help 1,000 people in a lifetime if I was just going to do individual psychotherapy, which is one of the reasons I got into marketing, because I wanted to have a stronger impact on the world. And I think the information you provided us today is very simpatico with that mission. I think these are some very good tips, and really made it clear what it's like to be an author and how to get motivated and get through. Some very practical tips about getting it published and promoting it and skipping some of the pitfalls. So I really appreciate what you've done for us here today, Susan. Is the best way for people to get in contact with you at livefoodfactor.com, or is there some other?
Yeah, but I would prefer that they email me at livefoodfactor@yahoo.com, because I check that a lot more often. So it would be livefoodfactor@yahoo.com.
Okay. I imagine if they have questions about the marketing process, you could talk to them about that, but I'm sure you're happy to talk to people about their dietary needs too. Sure?
Yes, absolutely. You can become a much better writer if you eat raw food while you're writing.
Okay, let me ask you this then before we go. I'm frequently making comments about eating raw food and increasing the amount of greens that I have, and I've even talked about being a vegan a period of times, and mostly I get comments about my crazy diet. People write back and say, well, I like to eat a lot of cream and meat. So I'm not sure how many converts we're going to get on my list if we tell them that they need to have a 100% raw diet. But I'm wondering if there's like a really simple step that you think people should take to increase energy, lose weight, start to heal some illnesses, and get better blood levels. It's a kind of a simple step that you tell your friends and family when they start to get introduced to this.
Yes, eat a lot of green smoothies and add a lot of chlorophyll and greens to your diet. There's a product that you can get in the U.S. online. It's called Greener Grasses, and it's dehydrated, raw, living wheatgrass. So if you add more of the wheatgrass and greens, you're going to have a lot more oxygen and a lot more energy, and you're going to be more alkaline. So if you keep adding that, immediately you're going to feel more energy. You don't have to wait for any kind of buildup of vitamins or nutrients or tissues or anything. Immediately you feel the effects.
Even if you spend the rest of the day eating Taco Bell and ice cream, right?
Well, you'll be so full from the greens that you won't have any room left for the Taco Bells.
I'll tell you what you just said was actually my experience. I'd kind of gotten fed up with the discipline of dieting, and in the Emotional Eating Project, most people on my list know that I've been building my wife's eating disorders coaching practice through a marketing project that I illustrate in my club. And I went into that project thinking that I would be teaching people how to be more disciplined and learning tricks about how to lower your fat intake and all that kind of stuff. And in the end, it turned out that what really worked with that market was to help them to be more in touch with what they really wanted and how to stop when they were full. But as I started to adopt that philosophy myself, I found that it only really worked if I had greens. And the more greens I had, the less cravings I had for anything else. And it was just so much easier than white knuckling it and pulling my hair out, having cravings for Taco Bell and ice cream, because my body was nourished, and so the cravings kind of went away. Not that they're never there or that I never have it, but they mostly went away. That's wonderful. Okay, so this has been Susan Shenk. And by the way, none of these links are affiliate links. This is all just, from the goodness of my heart, because I really believe in what Susan is doing. Susan Shenk at livefoodfactor.com. I encourage you all to go have a visit, and she's got some other podcasts, and she's got a newsletter and some other interesting things on her site I think are worthwhile for you to all check out and spread the word, get it around, and thanks for listening. Ciao.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for your time and attention. If you'd like to find out more about taking your coaching to the next level, getting certified, and building the practice of your dreams, please visit becomearealcoach.com. 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 Thank you.